So let's get this right underway. Hello everyone, I'm LockhartQT and I just finished watching Deadpool and Wolverine. If I sound tired, it's because it's very late at night here. Unfortunately, I couldn't go see it midnight day one, however I've come to see it the day after on the 25th. And let's get it right underway. This is going to be a no spoilers review, meaning that I'm not going to cover any of the absolutely mind-blowing cameos, the post-credit scene, the ending. I'm not going to cover any of that. I'm probably going to do it in a video in the next coming days. So let's get it right underway. What did I think of the film? Well, I didn't think it was the cinematic masterpiece that a lot of people were sort of hyping it up to be. However, I thought that the film overall did exactly what it was meant to be. I think the film acts as a really good Deadpool trilogy cap ender, like it covers a lot of stuff from Deadpool 1 and Deadpool 2, whilst also mixing in the obvious, the TVA as well as the MCU of it all, and I think the film does it spectacularly. Also bringing back Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was just, it felt like a homecoming, and there are a lot of absolutely mental cameos in this film. There are at least 5 or 6 on the top of my head. There are at least 3 that I think are going to sort of blow the internet's minds when they find out who is actually in this film. There are some, absolutely mind-blowing ones. That's the only description I can give it, and I'm going to leave it at that. I don't want to talk about the cameos anymore, but I do think a lot of the cameos, there are a few that are sort of there as joke cameos. They're only there for like a few frames as jokes. However, there are a few cameos where they actually get stuff to do in the film. They get stuff to do in the plot, and it fits in with the overall plot and the narrative of the Void Planet and the TVA. Speaking of which, sadly, a lot of the film does take place within the TVA's Void Planet, and there are loads of sort of really cool Easter eggs in the background, like there is in the Loki series. There's loads of stuff from both the sort of 20th Century Fox films, as well as the Sony films, as well as the MCU films. There's just everything Marvel in this film, and it was just fantastic to see all of the cameos and Easter eggs and whatnot. But what about the story? So to give it a non-spoilery review, I guess, essentially, because all the images that I'm going to use in this video, unfortunately I cannot use trailer footage as Disney will just copyright that immediately. However, in terms of the plot of the film, I thought it was very cohesive, very cool. There's a lot of, I guess, like stressful bits that go into it when you have got this many characters on screen, this many cameos, as it can just feel like a cameo for the sake of it. And yes, there are a few cameos that are just there for the sake of it. Like I said, they're there for maybe a few frames for a joke or a gag, and that's fine because they're kind of set up to be that. Whereas I think the film does a really good job at keeping the core group of characters very minimal. I mean, most of the film is just Deadpool and Wolverine, with then a few exceptions past that. However, the film is essentially Deadpool and Wolverine going on a road trip within the Void Planet, and I think that's fantastic. A lot of the film is spent on the Void Planet. And I've seen that complained a lot on the internet, but personally for me, I'm okay with that. I've got no problem that most of this film is on the Void Planet. And for me, I think that the gags and the jokes and the one-liners were pretty much 90% landed, all of them. People in the theatre that I was in the cinema were absolutely just creasing, were laughing so much. It got a few quite audible laughs out of me throughout the film, especially the sort of opening montage of the film in very Deadpool fashion. And I think the film, like I said at the start, it does a really good job at keeping Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool. It's R-rated, it's got blood and guts and gore, but it's got F-bombs, it's got M-bombs, it's got everything. Not only that, but I think this film does a fantastic job as being a send-off to the sort of 20th Century Fox canon, so the X-Men films, the Fantastic Four films, the Daredevil films. I think that the film is a really nice cap ender to that. There's even a few Easter eggs that are going to sort of make you feel very nostalgic for the older X-Men films and whatnot. Again, I'm not going to spoil any of them in this video, but it's really hard to not talk about the film. But one thing that I thought was absolutely spot on, I would argue and say this is the best of any of the Deadpool films. I would also go a step further and say that the fight scenes are some of the best fight scenes in the MCU as a whole, and I would argue and say even a step further than that, and say superhero films. I think the opening montage fight, the fight with Deadpool and Wolverine that you see in the trailer, as well as a few of the fights later on in the film, are just the choreography, the music, the way that the guns and swords and Wolverine's claws match up to the beat of the music, things like that. And I thought overall it took what was built upon in Deadpool 1. For example, in Deadpool 1 you had the excellent highway fight scene with Deadpool, the sort of test footage, if you will, that was then sort of made into a longer scene in the actual film. And then in Deadpool 2 you had sort of the ending fight as well as the opening montage again. In this film you get very similar setups where you get like an opening montage and whatnot, like in Deadpool 1, Deadpool 2. And the fight scenes were just so good, man. Like, I really wish I could talk about the, everything in more detail, really, but I'm going to save that for my sort of spoilers review. And again, I apologise if I sound tired, it's because I am. It's quite late at night in the UK, it's 11 o'clock. I've been making YouTube videos all day, and then I went to go see this. One thing that I will say that I was very surprised about going into the film, I went to my local Odeon, which if you live in the UK you'll know what that is. It's like a popular sort of theatre, cinema chains going to the movies. And I've got to be honest, I got there early. I got there an hour early with my partner. We both went to see the film together, and the cinema was actually pretty much empty. It was half of the sort of cinema hall was empty. The seat, there was loads of seats going. It was pretty much empty, and that really shocked me. We got there early expecting there to be a queue. As for Marvel films of the past, for example, when I went to go see Endgame, Infinity War, Black Panther, Ragnarok, we had to queue for sometimes half an hour, 45 minutes to actually get in. Whereas with Deadpool and Wolverine, we just walk straight in and we're just sort of there for, half an hour, 20 minutes, just sitting down in the actual screening room, not really doing a whole lot. So I guess that's an eye-opener with everything going on with Marvel. And yes, I know there's more factors that go into it. There's the, current money issues and politics issues going on in the UK with the fact that a lot of people just don't have the money to go to the cinemas nowadays, especially that it's getting more expensive. But again, it's a very big eye-opener. I mean, Deadpool and Wolverine was meant to be the film to save the MCU, especially with Disney's financial issues currently going on. And I think as a film, it did a very good job. Like I said at the start, if you're going into this expecting like Endgame, Infinity War, where you've got massive fight scenes with all the Fox characters, then that's not going to happen. This film is very much its own self-contained thing. Other than one thing I can think of on the top of my head, this film doesn't really do a whole lot to set up the MCU going forward, which I think maybe could have done a bit better. The film does have a post-credits scene, but in typical Deadpool fashion, it's more of a gag rather than, setting up the next MCU film. I think if Marvel had maybe done something like a mid-credit scene, maybe tying it in a bit better to maybe the next, like a, I don't know, even showing, a new trailer for the new Captain America film, I don't know, but at the same time I think the film works really well as its own self-contained thing, whilst also being a Deadpool, Deadpool 3, as well as also being an MCU film. This is a very important film because it's bringing both Wolverine, the X-Men, Fantastic Four, other characters into the MCU for the very first time, properly at least. Also, it was very bizarre to see certain characters from the sort of X-Men comics and the Fox universes, as well as Deadpool and Wolverine themselves, talking about, the TVA and MCU. It was very odd to see on screen, but it's something that, myself and a lot of people have wanted for a very long time, and I'm just glad that it's finally here. So I've rambled on enough. Again, as you can tell, there's been a very unscripted video, but I think overall Deadpool and Wolverine is a must watch. I think going into it, it's one of my favourite Marvel films. That's just because I'm a bit biased in the fact that I'm a massive Deadpool fan and I'm a massive Wolverine fan. If you grow up with the X-Men films, the Deadpool films, the Fox universe films, I'm not going to say any more on those, you're going to love this film. This film is a love letter to 20th century Fox films and superhero films before the whole Disney buyout. It is a love letter to those, and it is a homage to those films. I think that the tie-ins with the MCU were done fantastically, especially with the TVA and how Deadpool interacts with the TVA and the TVA officers and Paradox, for example. I think that was done really well, and hopefully I've sort of inspired you to maybe go to the cinema and go check this out. Either that, or if you're going to wait for it to come on streaming services, I really recommend that as well. There were a lot of just shock moments where my jaw hit the floor. I know people are going to get annoyed with me talking about it this much, but genuinely there was one cameo that actually had my jaw gaped because I could not believe it was in the film. It's all I will say for that is it's an actor who's openly said they will not be in the MCU again, and here they are in the MCU again, so it's a very interesting one. Also, before I go, please don't drop any spoilers in the comments. I sort of will be looking through and sort of filtering, but please don't drop any spoilers in the comments. You know, be wary that there's a lot of people perhaps watching this that maybe don't want any spoilers. I hope I haven't done too much to spoil it. I will put a spoiler warning sort of on screen at the start just in case, but I don't think I've spoiled anything of the film. But those are my thoughts. Deadpool and Wolverine is a fantastic MCU film. It's a fantastic Deadpool film, it's a fantastic Wolverine film, and it's a fantastic film overall. I don't think it's a mind-blowing piece of cinema, but it's a fun film that's going to have you smiling throughout. There are some serious moments, some sad moments, but it's mostly comedy, like upbeat comedy, sort of that, you know, your typical Deadpool Ryan Reynolds film. And Ryan Reynolds, Hugh Jackman do a fantastic job to keep the ball rolling, as well as some of these supporting actors and actresses getting some really cool one-liners and really funny jokes. Anyway everyone, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic day, and hopefully we get another Deadpool and Wolverine film. That'd be fantastic if we do, but to be honest, if this is the last time we see Ryan Reynolds as Deadpool, I think this is a perfect way to end it, and the same thing for Hugh Jackman as Wolverine. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope you all have a fantastic day. Bye.